Today you're going to begin a letters project. In this project you're going to draw 3 to 5 letters in SketchUp. You're going to design them and draw them yourself, and then you're going to use that drawing to go into the shop and construct your letters from plywood using the miter saw and the bandsaw. So today we're going to look at how to draw those and what kind of rules are we going to follow. What are the criteria and constraints? The letters you choose is up to you. No vulgar words or bad words. You can do your initials. You can do the initials of a team. You can do your name. And we'll, again, try to keep it 3 to 5 letters. Your lettering must be block style, and block style means what you see here. This is kind of a good example here, not quite exactly, but pretty close. You see the S here, it has no curves to it. All the lines in it are vertical or horizontal. The C up here, the same thing. The O, also no curves. And so that's what we're talking about with block style. We're also talking about all capital letters, no lowercase letters. Each letter must be 3 inches high and 2 1/4 inches wide. And when we draw that in SketchUp, I'll show you how to easily make your letters exactly that, exactly those dimensions. There are some exceptions to that rule. The letters W, M, sometimes the J may have to be wider, and so they may need to be actually 3 inches by 3 inches. And I'll show you how to do one of those. Again, at least 3 letters, no more than 5 unless you get permission from me. Each part of the letter must have a 3/4 inch thickness. What does that mean? And so if I was to go and, let's say my finger was 3/4 of an inch thick, and I stuck my finger into this letter C here, I should be able to trace this C all the way around and go all the way from the top down all the way to the bottom. Same thing with the O. I should be able to move around inside that letter freely because the inside of the letter itself is actually 3/4 of an inch. And again, I'll show you how to easily set that up on SketchUp. There are some exceptions to that rule, such as the P, G, D, A, B, J, and R. And these letters usually have holes in them or have a space inside. And so sometimes that makes it so that the thickness of the letter may be a little less than 3/4. No curves again. There are some exceptions to that as well, such as the P, D, R, and B. Sometimes they look better with a curve, and so you can add a curve to those if you want. And again, the letter O shouldn't have any curves at all. We want to keep these as straight as possible. It will definitely help you to make these much easier in the shop. So let's go ahead and take a look at SketchUp. When you choose your template for SketchUp, you want to choose woodworking inches. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the front view. I'm also going to go ahead and change my camera to parallel projection, so I'm seeing a true front view of this. Now I'll move this over. Easy way to get started on this project is to set up a 3/4 inch grid. To do that, you'll use guidelines. So you'll get your tape measure tool, start the blue axis, come over, and you can type in 3/4 or you can type in 0.75. Let's try that again. There we go. And so we got 3/4. And you see that kind of looks kind of small there. And so we'll zoom in some. And then I'm going to continue to lay down 3/4. After you do it 1 time or 2 times, the neat thing that SketchUp does is it says, hey, you used that measurement before, do you want that one again? And so then I don't even have to go in and type those numbers in. It just kind of automatically pops over to 3/4. Of course, you got to bring it close to it. And you'll see it says 3/4 on the screen also. So I'm going to make several of these going across, because we'll have several letters going across. And then I'm also going to start the red axis and go up and do the same thing. Now, we don't need as many going up because we're just doing the height of the letters here. And so remember we said the height needs to be 3 inches. So how many 3/4 do we need to get 3 inches? And hopefully in your head, or you said out loud, 4 of them. Because 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1.5. And then if we do 1.5 plus 1.5, we know that's 3. And so you only need 4 going up, and you can do several going across to fit all your letters. And of course, you can always add more in later if you need more room going across. Let's start out with probably one of the more simple letters, and that's the O itself. And so what you want to do is you want to really fill the space in here. And again, 3 inches high by 2¼ inches wide. So 2¼ inches wide, how many blocks is that? Let's see, 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1.5, and 1.5 plus 3/4 is 2¼ So when you're looking at these, you're really thinking about 4 blocks high and 3 blocks wide. So when I draw my O, I'm going to draw right on the lines. So I went across 3 blocks, go up 4 blocks, go back across 3 blocks, come back down. So I have the outside of my O, and now I can just draw the inside as well. And again, I can just follow the lines. So for a lot of letters, you will follow exactly on the lines. There are some letters that you won't, but for many of the simple letters, you'll just draw right on top of the grid lines that you've made. And then I can pull this out, let's say maybe 1/2 inch, 0.5. That's about the thickness of your letters when you will create them out of the plywood. And go back to the front view. So let's draw another simple one real quick. So for example, a C. So what I can do here is I can just skip a space. Make sure I start on the red line here. And go up again 4 blocks and go across 3 blocks. And then I can just draw my C out. And so again, that was pretty simple. So there goes a C there. Let's move on to some other letters that may not be quite as simple. Let's see if you can guess what this letter is. Lots of people guess that this is going to be an H, but it's not. We're going to draw a line here, and a line here, and then I'm just going to draw some diagonals. So you can have diagonal lines in here for some of these. You'll have to for some letters. Well, there goes my N, and I have that 3/4 inch thickness all throughout. 3/4 inch thickness here, here, up at the top. And you may be thinking, how in the world am I supposed to know how to do that? Well, that's part of the project. I think one of the easiest things to do is take a piece of paper and a pencil and just sketch these out before you draw them. And in that way, that kind of give you an idea of what you want to draw. And then, of course, as you draw it, you may run into some problems. Trial and error, you can figure out how you'll fill that space in and how to get your letters to be 3/4 inch thickness where they should be. Not all letters will follow the grid lines exactly. For example, this is a diagonal. For example, an S is a popular letter. A lot of times what happens with an S is people try to start drawing. And we'll leave that there. And what they do is they come to the inside and they skip a 3/4 inch space. That seems reasonable. And they come down here and they go, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't work because now I don't have space down here for the other side of the S. So let's take a look at how you can solve that problem. Solve that problem, sometimes your spacing or your spaces in the letter need to be a little smaller. So let's do 1/2 of 3/4. If you do 1/2 of 3/4, 1/2 of 3/4 is 3/8. And so I'm going to come down and type in 3/8. And just only instead of going down 3/4, I'll just go down 3/8. And now I'll continue with the same drawing. I'm going to get rid of this line here real quick from before. And come over, and here again I'm going to only go 3/8. And in fact, it already says on line 3/8, so we'll use that. And now I can come around and finish that S off. And again, that just takes a little bit of playing around on a piece of paper to know how to do that. Now you know how to do it because you've seen it. But if you have a letter and you're not sure, you just need to sketch it out. Sketch it out on a piece of paper, sketch it out in your notebook, and see what kind of measurements you can come up with to fulfill the requirements. Again, this is 3/4 of an inch thickness all the way around, and it fills in the space here, 4 blocks high and 3 blocks wide. You also have some letters that, what about curves? So let's take a look at a D, for example. A lot of people try to draw a D, and drawing a D in block lettering is kind of tough. You could put some angles on it to make it so that all the lines are straight. Personally, I kind of like the curve on it, and so that's why I'm allowing you to do a curve here. A lot of people come up here and go to the 2-point arc, and that's a good one to use. And they'll draw and come out, but you see how that goes above and below our requirements there. So that doesn't really work. So how in the world do you get this arc to work? What you can do is just add lines. So you add a horizontal line up at the top and a horizontal line down at the bottom. And then after you do that, then try to add the arc to it. And when you do, look at that, it comes out just right and perfect. Now the other idea of this though is this does look like a D, but how about the inside of the D? And that's something you're just going to play with. But I suggest you do the exact same type of process. So whether you start over here or you make this a little bit less, and again, this is one of those layers that you might not have exactly a 3/4 inch thickness here. You might can make it a little bit less if you don't like the way that looks. You come in here and draw, but again, add the lines at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to come and add a line here, and then add a line at the top going across as well before I add my arc in. Now I'll add my arc in, and you can see I can play around with that. That makes the outside here look too thin, so I'll pull that in a little bit. I could do it like that, and if you don't like the way that looks, you can always move all of this over, redraw it and move it over some, so that maybe it doesn't take as much space up, or this becomes a little bit less. And again, as you pull that out, you have a D there. So it's really up to you. You gotta kind of figure out what these will look like, and think of what the block lettering will look like. And some letters are more of a challenge than others, but that's part of the project. You can figure that out. Again, 3 to 5 letters, and you can do this. Just draw your grid first. Your grid's going to help you a tremendous amount. So 3 blocks wide, 4 blocks high. And again, some letters such as the W and the M could take just a little bit more space, and so maybe you want to make those 4 blocks wide instead of 3 blocks wide. Good luck.